Back to our top story, the Occupy Wall Street protests in New York and the U.S. To talk more about the situation and what it all means, joining us now is Stephen Lenman, who's an author and a blogger. Thanks for being with us. Stephen, what do you think the outcome of these demonstrations will be?
Well, I've been watching them very closely. I've written about them. I plan to write more about them. I'm hopeful, but I'm very concerned at the same time. They have wonderful issues they're trying to address. They're all important, but they'll accomplish nothing except cosmetic changes unless they go after the sole core issue. The sole core issue is very simple. It's the power of money in private hands to make more of it at the public's expense. Can I tell you some very important things? And they need leadership. They need committed leadership, city by city. This is spreading all over the country. I haven't seen anything like this in 40 years. This may have legs if they do it right, but so far they're falling short. Let me mention a couple of very important things. On July 4th, 1776, Thomas Jefferson, America's third president, was the lead writer of America's Declaration of Independence. He said in it that the government guarantees unalienable rights to all its citizens. And he said, I'll quote him, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government. He said one more important thing about bankers. He railed against bankers. He said, quote, "I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, which they do today, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations..."
Stephen, I'm very sorry to interrupt. I just want to bring it back to some of the brutality, the brutal responses that we've been seeing on the streets in New York. Do you think that will stop the activists or simply provoke more action?
I think so far it's provoking more. But this is what cops do. Cops beat up on people. Cops enforce the power of the political bosses. They go out. Mayor Bloomberg sent them out. They didn't go out because they want to go out. They went out because the mayor sent them out. Bloomberg is a billionaire. He doesn't want his special privileges taken away from him. So he sends out the cops. They beat them up in New York. They beat them up in other cities. They beat them when they protest the IMF and the World Bank, other global institutions. This is what cops do. The people so far are very courageous. They're keeping it up. They take heart from what they see going on across the world, and it's still going on. Can they continue this? I worry that the weather will get cold up north, that they'll lose their interest. I live in Chicago. It can get very nasty in Chicago. Will they come out when the temperatures drop below zero, when it snows? Won't be easy.
Right. I wanted to ask you that just briefly. We've been seeing these protests for 3 weeks now. Do you think it could come to that, to people just getting tired and going home?
Oh, exactly. That's what usually happens. And that's what the power elite hope for. They'll let this play out. They'll send the cops out a little bit. And instead of beginning in the spring, which is what I wish they did, they began in the fall. And again, it's going to get cold all too soon. Come November, it'll start getting very cold in Chicago. It'll get down in the 40s and the 30s, around the freezing mark. Well, at least people come out. I don't know. They're certainly not going to sleep on the streets, and the numbers will dwindle. They may be committed people, but the big numbers probably won't join them. There were masses in New York yesterday, the biggest protest by far. Tens of thousands of people came out on the streets of New York. Whoever would have thought that many would come out 3 weeks after this began? Maybe this can spread in those big numbers across America. It did in the 1960s, and there was civil rights reform. It did earlier for labor. There was labor reform. Maybe you can do it now to get the kind of reforms these people want, but it won't be easy. It won't be without commitment, and it won't ever happen unless they address the core issue of money power in America. It's got to go back to public hands. Nothing will get done unless that happens.
All right, Stephen Lenman, radio host, author, and blogger, thank you very much for your analysis.